launch in 3, 2, 1.
To anyone who finds this message, I am Dr. Skiz of the Altera ship Aurora. I was the head botanist in charge of maintaining the hydroponics bay. Earlier today, the ship experienced some sort of catastrophic failure. I don't know what caused it, but we crash-landed on planet 4546b. I was lucky enough to escape in a life pod, but on the way down, it began to break apart, and I got smacked in the face with a sheet of metal. I love working for Altera, but these kinds of accidents are far too common. I had to repair 2 of my field hand bots just this week due to poor quality motherboards. But I digress. The life pod is still functional, albeit in a limited capacity, and the radio is completely busted. At least the fabricator works. The air seems to be breathable, but 4546p is a water world. I don't have a sea glide. My PDA also must have gotten damaged because most of the fabrication directions are missing. I landed in an area that my PDA tells me plunges down 30 meters. I'm gonna have a hard time, but hopefully rescue will arrive soon. Dr. Skiz log, day 1. This planet is very strange. Time seems to work much differently here. A single day-night cycle lasts only 8 hours, but the planet lacks the wind associated with rotational speeds that high. I'm not a physicist by any means, but I am a scientist. My best guess is that the planet is enveloped in some sort of temporal anomaly, or maybe being stranded is just driving me crazy. I doubt that, though. If that were the case, I don't think I could have stayed up for 2 days straight before even feeling tired. Today was difficult. I don't think I've been this active since my time in college. Swimming is definitely not my preferred exercise, but I am gonna be ripped after this. Well, as long as I survive. That wasn't the case for everyone, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I could see the crash site of the Aurora from my life pod. It's completely destroyed. Well, it's not like it disintegrated, but half the ship is gone, and my PDA tells me that there is a huge radiation leak coming from the crash. I'm staying away from there if I can help it. The first thing I did was gather the necessary resources to repair my life pod. I can't send out a distress signal if my radio is busted. Luckily, my PDA had done a preliminary scan of the region and roughly located the various resources necessary to synthesize the tools in the fabricator. Nearby acid mushrooms were used in the batteries, and scrap metal from the wreck could be used in the metal frames. The repair tool needed sulfur, however. My PDA told me that this could be found in the caves dotting the area of the shallows. There are these queer fish that have some kind of symbiotic relationship with a plant in these caves. The fish live inside the plant and aggressively charge anything that gets too close. Then they explode. It really hurts. I wonder how that survival strategy evolved. After the explosion, the plant is left undefended, and for some reason, they love to filter sulfur out of the water. Lucky break for me, I guess. Using this cave sulfur, I was able to fabricate a repair tool and fix the life pod. The radio had a message available. The Aurora sent out a distress signal at least. It doesn't seem like anyone is coming soon.
Radio online.
This is Aurora. Distress signal received. Rescue operation will be dispatched to your location in 9.
I guess that means it's time to settle in for the long haul. I did not want to sleep in that life pod, so I scrounged the seafloor for materials to make a habitat builder. While I was down there, I noticed a peculiar type of fish I came to call a shuttlebug. I had seen them before, but this one was covered in green pustules. After scanning it, the PDA told me the infection was actually of a bacteria all around us in the water. I sure hope I'm not compatible with it, but seeing as I can eat these fish without a problem, I can be at risk of a cross-species event. After coming back, I got a distress call from Life Pod 3.
Receiving re-recorded distress call. Laying back.
This is Life Pod 3, uploading our coordinates. We're plugging some holes in our emergency sea glide, so if we're late for the rendezvous, don't panic. Also, don't go home without us. Seriously. 3 out.
They were quite far, and my PDA was still lacking the instructions for a sea glide. And soon thereafter, another distress call, this time from Life Pod 6.
Laying re-recorded distress call.
This is Life Pod 6. I have a passenger on board. Coordinates attached. We've landed a kilometer from the crash site, but there's radiation in between us and the rendezvous. Request immediate assistance. 6 out.
Sadly, their location data was corrupted, and I would have no hope of finding it. I hope they made it. At this point, I had been awake for about 16 hours. I was exhausted from all of this work, but I wasn't done yet. I still needed to power my habitat so I could breathe inside. As I looked around for materials, I found a broken sea glide, which was in just good enough condition that my PDA could synthesize a recipe. With that newly fabricated sea glide in hand, I swam as fast as it would carry me over to Lifepod 3's signal. But it seems I was too late. The lifepod sank to the seabed, mercifully only about 10 meters down, but it was also punctured by something. I would guess a stalker, these large gar-looking fish, approximately 3 meters long on average, with sharp teeth that seem to fall out frequently. They can be aggressive, but they prefer to eat easier, smaller targets. I had to fend one off with a knife earlier. But it stayed away after getting slashed. But I digress. There were no signs of life around the life pod. There was a broken sea glide, but after listening to the PDA they left, it seems like that sea glide was our only hope. I really hope they made it. At this point, I was about to pass out from exhaustion, but a nutrient block was enough to get me back to my life pod. I installed a solar panel, built a swivel chair, and now here I sit, ready to pass out. Dr. Skiz signing off. Hopefully day 2 will be better. Dr. Skiz log. Day 2. Swivel chairs are a lot comfier than you think they are, but that might just be because it's not a cold, hard metal floor. Today was a wild mix of excitement, disappointment, and curiosity. The good news is that there's a ship nearby. They are designated as Sunbeam. They received the Aurora distress call and are coming to rescue me and anyone else. If there even is anyone else.
This is Avery Quinn of Trading Ship Sunbeam. Aurora, do you read? Over? Nothing but vacuum. These Altera ships. They run low on engine grease, send an SOS. You offer help, they don't pick up. Aurora, I'm out on the far side of the system. It's gonna take more than a week to reach your position. Do you still need our assistance? Over. I'll try them again tomorrow. Damn charter's gonna have us blowing our credits running errands for Altera. See what the long-range scans pick up in the meantime. Aurora, this is Sunbeam again. We just picked up a massive debris field at your location. I didn't know how many of you... I didn't know. We're now en route to your location. We're gonna bring you home. Sunbeam out.
I received the distress call from Lifepod 17 while I was sleeping. It wasn't too far away, but it was in the same situation as Lifepod 3. The pod sank to the ocean floor, much deeper this time, roughly 90 meters deep. And the hull was ripped open as well. Ozzy was on board. He ran a cafe aboard the Aurora. I stopped by most mornings. He made the best coffee I ever had in space. Never was too close with him, but putting a face to the loss hurts more. As I was searching the area around Lifepod 17, my PDA notified me that the Aurora's drive core went supercritical and an explosion was imminent. If anyone managed to survive on the ship before, they definitely weren't alive anymore. The radiation from the ship spread much further as well. My PDA advised me to build a radiation suit to stave off its ill effects. I also encountered my first Leviathan-class lifeform today. My PDA said the planet had many of them, but I honestly didn't believe it until now. I have taken to calling these gentle giants reefback Leviathans. They are roughly 30 meters long, though half of that is their trailing tentacles. They seem to be filter feeders and typically drift along near the top of the water column. The most fascinating part about them is that their back is covered in plants. A true microbiome covers their shell. I observed a few traveling in a pod, and each seems to have their own unique assortment of flora. They are also accompanied by schools of smaller fish. I would need to observe further to determine if they're along for the ride, or if they actually live with or on the reefbacks. After returning to my life pod, I fabricated the radiation protection and a mobile vehicle bay. After sorting through the resources I gathered, I realized I had just enough to fabricate a sea moth. Finding other survivors would be so much easier now. Before I got a chance to take it for a test drive, my radio received a message from Second Officer Keene.
Land re-recorded distress call.
This is Officer Keene in Lightpod 19. The captain is gone. I have assumed command. The last thing the captain did was give me coordinates for dry land. We regroup 1.5 kilometers southwest of the crash site. Stay together and good luck. This message will now repeat.
He said there was a rendezvous on dry land somewhere, but I never received coordinates for that. My only lead was the coordinates from his sunken life pod. Immediately I fired the sea moth to life and zoomed over to the coordinates. I got distracted along the way by some really interesting plants. The first one I'm calling anchor pods. These are large gas-filled orbs roughly 3 to 5 meters in diameter, anchored to the seabed by holdfasts. No, they are not roots. Their only purpose seems to be to hold the pods in place, and they do not absorb nutrients from a substrate. The pods seem to be the plant's reproductive organ and will explode once enough gas pressure builds up, spreading their spores along the ocean currents. The second plant I am calling a membrane tree. This seems to be a complex of coral-type species living in symbiosis. The major coral creates a tree-like structure and a membrane to envelop a microcosm in which the other corals live. This microcosm maintains homeostatic conditions and is much warmer and bacteria-dense than the surrounding waters. After finding Second Officer Keen's life pod, once again sank to the bottom of the ocean with its hull breached, I checked the PDA he left for coordinates to the rendezvous. It was surprisingly close by. No one would believe me if I didn't have video proof, but the island was floating. Yes, check the video on this PDA if you don't believe me, but the island was floating far above the seafloor. The rendezvous point was in the center of the island, in a hole that reached into the sea. Think of the island like a giant donut. The rendezvous point was in the hole. After surfacing, I found a PDA the second officer left. He didn't make it. CTOU also survived and made it to the rendezvous point. They attempted to return to the Aurora and repair the comm system. They didn't even make it. Something got them. A Leviathan-class life form I had yet to encounter found them and was hungry. I think I'm the only one left. I don't think anyone else even made it to the rendezvous point. If the Sunbeam hadn't said anything, I think I might have lost all hope. I had been awake for 17 hours at this point, but seeing all the new flora on this island reinvigorated me. I performed preliminary scans on everything I could find, but something strange caught my eye. At the peak of the island, I spotted a decrepit habitat. It had clearly been here for years, and unused in that time as well. Perhaps there was something useful inside, or maybe even a data log of their time on this planet. This wasn't the only habitat on the island. Apparently, there was a twin peak nearby, with another habitat on top, and a third habitat in the valley in between. The two at the peaks were interesting, but only contained data packs. The one in the valley had a variety of edible plants, which I of course had to take with me, and a strange tablet seemingly of alien origin. We haven't made contact with any aliens. I feel like something like that would be a big deal. Obviously, I needed to take that with me too. After listening to the voice logs they left, it seems their Mongolian ship, the Degasi, also crash-landed on this planet. The three survivors set up a base on this island, but eventually moved on to somewhere deeper. A disturbing log describes how the youngest was the only one left at the end, and how some infection is killing him. I was getting really tired at this point, so I went back to the Seamoth and drove back to my life pod. When I returned, I tried to create a platform to farm these plants, but I was lacking resources. So that is now a task for tomorrow. My swivel chair beckons me. Dr. Skiz, signing off. Dr. Skiz log, day 3. Now that I know the Sunbeam is on its way, I only need to survive until I get picked up. Easier said than done. I nearly died of thirst after my excursion today, but as long as I can avoid catastrophes like that, I think I should be fine. After waking up, I finished fabricating my growing platform and planted a few of the plants I acquired from the floating island. Still amazed by that. The awe of seeing such ancient and powerful creatures, I doubt will ever leave. I received another message from a life pod while I was sleeping. The systems indicated that the passenger was already dead in the distress call. I had already resigned myself to being the only survivor, so this wasn't too shocking for me.
High priority automated message from Aurora Live Pod 13 coordinates attached. Live Pod is carrying high priority passenger.
Yoki Kasa. I said Kasa. Why do I have to record this anyway?
Send immediate burial detail.
Seeing as it wasn't an urgent distress call, I took the time to build the previously mentioned growing platform before investigating. He crashed in a biome I am dubbing the Mushroom Forest. This biome is dominated by giant tree-like corals that facilitate many other epiphytic and epizoic life forms. Just a completely remarkable vertical reef system. The life pod was empty, of course, and just like the others, it had sunk to the bottom and its hull was ripped open. I continued exploring the area afterwards, and I happened across the biggest chunk of the Aurora I had yet seen, perched atop a tree mushroom. Upon investigation, I was able to add enough data to my PDA that I can now fabricate some furniture. 2 days in a swivel chair is enough. I want a bed. Once I returned to my habitat, I gave it a necessary expansion. I'm probably stuck here for another few days at least, so I might as well make it comfy. I fabricated 2 padded benches and moved them next to each other to create a makeshift bed. Wow. It is just so much better this way. Living like this, scrounging off the land, really makes you appreciate the luxuries of modern life. While I was doing those home renovations, the radio went off again. This time it was LifePod 12.
This is an automated distress signal from Life Pod 12. Coordinates attached. Warning. Life Pod has sunk beyond safe diving distance. Do not attempt retrieval without submersible support.
The distress call was automated and said it had plunged quite deep down, which I later found out meant 250 meters. I needed to know if anyone made it, even though the possibility was slim. On the way over to the signal, I found a wreck with some intact lab equipment. I know just how valuable those are. You best believe I snatched those up immediately. More importantly, I found a mostly intact coffee machine. It was in good enough shape for my PDA to synthesize a recipe to make a copy. Manna from the heavens, oh how I missed you. It will never be as good as Aussie's, but at least it'll be something. After finishing my quick trip over to the life pod, I found it in the same condition as all the others, sunk to the bottom, with its hull ripped open. This was, once again, in a new ecosystem, this time dominated by bulb bushes. They come in various sizes, with the biggest being around 10 meters in diameter. They look like a bumpy ball perched atop a short twisted trunk. They kind of look like a koosh toy, if you shaved it to be just the core. Inside the life pod, I found what are presumably the last words of Medical Officer Danby. He confessed to not knowing anything about medicine. I kind of figured that already. The one time I had to go see him on the trip, he quickly handed me over to the medic bots. It was just a bad scrape, but it put a bad taste in my mouth. He also said something about green pustules growing on him. Oh, those were the same symptoms I saw on the shuttle bug on my first day here. It looks like it can spread to humans. The good news, however, is that I also found a special peeper today. Come to think of it, I haven't described those fish yet. They're shaped like an arrow symbol and have one large eye on each side, hence the name peeper. Further documentation can be found inside this PDA. Back to the good news. This special peeper was trailing a bioluminescence, which is unusual, because every life form I've seen so far just has regular bioluminescence localized in their bodies. Nothing ever trails behind them. I scanned it, and the PDA says it's trailing some sort of enzyme that seems to have the effect of fighting the bacterial infection I saw on the shuttle bug, and now have seen reported from the medical officer Danby. Perhaps the reason he succumbed to it so quickly was because he wasn't exposed to the peepers. Meanwhile, they are quite abundant in the safe shallows where I landed, and I've even eaten a few of them. I also noticed that when I came back today, the plants I planted only a few hours ago had completely matured. I don't understand this time anomaly. Are we going fast? Are we going slow? Why? Oh god, why are the plants growing so fast? I need to know. This could completely change everything. No longer will we have to eat tasteless nutrient blocks. If we can recreate this anomaly on ships, our plants will be able to grow so fast that we won't have to ration fresh food. Or, well, at least not for shorter trips. I'm going to petition Alterra to let me come back here. With reasonable accommodations, of course. Ain't no way I'm gonna rough it like this again. Though I will say, this high-protein diet, combined with all this exercise, is already showing results. That being said, those padded benches are calling my name, and I need a good long rest now. Dr. Skiz, signing off. Dr. Skiz log, Day 4. This planet is far more than meets the eye. There is so much to discover here, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The first thing I did was set up the coffee machine and move the lab equipment onto a table. Oh, how I've missed you, coffee. This is possibly the worst coffee I have ever had. Yes, even worse than powdered coffee. But after a life-altering few days and a lack of coffee, this objectively awful coffee really hits the spot. The bench bed is surprisingly comfortable too, but that might just be due to how tired I am. Soon after setting up the coffee station, I received a distress call from LifePod 4.
This is LifePod 4. We've landed close to the Aurora. Flotation device is active, but we've got some big old fish in the water with us. I don't know how long we're gonna last. We're close to the crash site, so bring radiation protection. 4 out.
We've been on this planet for 4 days now, and they weren't at the rendezvous site. It's safe to assume they're dead. I know that sounds callous, but living out here in the metaphorical jungle, you start to see life in a sort of eat or be eaten kind of way. Seeing how literally every other life pod sank to the seabed, I know I'm just lucky, but luck is a skill all its own. But I digress. LifePod 4 landed pretty much right next to the Aurora. After investigating, it looks like the Aurora completely destroyed whatever biome it crashed in, and thus I am designating it the Crash Zone. The water is still quite turgid after a few days. Wait, no. The word I'm looking for is turbid. always get those two mixed up because they sound the same. Turgid refers to water pressure inside plant cells, while turbid refers to how opaque the water is. The crash zone is turbid. I can barely see 20 meters in front of me. It's like driving on a foggy road. But I digress. LifePod 4 was indeed empty and punctured, but it was still floating. The PDA found inside was concerning. The Leviathan-class lifeform that presumably killed Second Officer Keene attacked the lifepod. One even tried to swallow it whole. These things are dangerous. Glad I didn't run into any while I was there. I also explored the crash zone before returning to base. It was mostly just scrap, but I also found enough mostly intact devices to fill out the PDA recipes. After returning to base, I expanded the grow site. There wasn't much else to do besides wait on the sunbeam, so I took a trip back to the floating island to collect plant samples. So many different species, I can't wait for them to grow. I also found a data pad I missed the first time. This one had the location for the new base they moved to, but I don't really care about that. That's a mystery for the return crew to handle. Speaking of, I also found something very strange. Inside a cave on the floating island, I found an alien structure. This arch is by no means of human construction. The PDA doesn't really know what to make of it, but I think it looks like a Stargate. I definitely read too much sci-fi. It could be anything. After returning to base, I received some good news. The sunbeam is quite close, and after converting their time estimate to 4546B time, it looks like they will be landing in about a day.
Aurora, we're approaching the planet now. We have a landing site for you that's... well, it's better than the alternatives. We've sent you the coordinates. It'll take us a couple of days to align our orbit. We should be able to establish direct contact with you during that time. Then we're coming in to get you. Cross your fingers, the weather holds. Don't leave us waiting. Sunbeam out.
Finally, I will be free of this nightmare. But for now, I need to rest. Dr. Skiz, signing off. Dr. Skiz log, day 5. Well, I'm still here on this rock. You can guess what that means. Let me tell my story, and we'll get there when we get there. The bench bed is starting to lose its appeal. Much better than what I had to be sure, but I really, really want some nice cushions to sleep on. Since I'm stuck here, I might as well go see if the other Degassi base had a bed I can copy the schematics for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First thing in the morning, I get some coffee. Sweet, sweet coffee. How I love you. Still the worst coffee of my life, but at least it's coffee. Maybe I could add some bobo sap to sweeten it? Right, bobo trees are native to the floating island and mountain island I will tell you about later. They are short, only about 2 meters tall at the trunk, with leaf fronds that stretch up another 3 meters. But they excrete this sap that my PDA tells me is edible. It's mildly sweet, kinda earthy, kinda nutty in flavor. I might be able to synthesize a distillery depending on what I can find in the wrecks. So far, glassware has evaded me except for the small amount of lab equipment I found yesterday. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think Altera would have the blueprints for a distillery in the PDA at all, even if it was uncorrupted. They just love keeping their monopoly on alcohol. PDA, can I please make a distillery? I don't need alcohol, especially not here. I just want syrup. Damn, I was hoping that would work. I guess I'll have to get creative with what I can fabricate. Using the blueprints I acquired from databanks in the life pods I visited yesterday, I was able to upgrade the tools I was using. I can now swim much faster and stay underwater for much longer. And my knife is battery-powered now. It can deal thermal damage and cauterize wounds in a pinch. I don't know if I can do that. I hope I never have to do that. With that done, I prepared my trip to the landing site. Of course, I needed to bring valuable plant samples from this world. The only thing unique to this planet is its genetic resources. Sure, it has metals, water, and other valuable materials, but genetic resources and the proteins and enzymes they encode are almost certainly unique, and also not more readily available outside of a major gravity well. I also made sure to grab the alien tablet. That artifact is likely even more valuable than the plants I'm bringing. I drove the sea moth to the landing site. It was another island, but this time it was a normal one, not a floating one. I have decided to call it the Mountain Island. Maybe I'll name it Mount Skiz, or maybe Mount Peeper. But I digress. The landing site was a beach near what can only be described as an alien structure. It looked like a small skyscraper and was only 11, maybe 10 stories tall in my estimation. Later I learned it also went down below the waves, but we're getting there. The entrance was closed by some sort of plasma shield, which was tingly, like electricity when I got too close. The key to opening it was my alien tablet, but I didn't know that yet. At this point, it was merely a hunch. At this point, I was thinking, not my problem. I just want to go home. I arrived at the landing site a few hours early, so I decided to explore the island. I walked along an ancient path with periodical small alien structures, which I guess were like trail guides or something. Anyway, I followed them through a tunnel, discovering 2 more alien tablets, and eventually found another arch, like the one I found on the floating island. I'll come back to this later, but at this point, I headed back to the beach to take a nap until the sunbeam arrived. I was suddenly awoken by the alien tower roaring to life. It changed its orientation to look like a cannon, and dread washed over me. What is going on with that? Is this thing a gun?
Survivor, we see you. Man, I don't know how you held out down there. We broke an atmosphere, and we're descending towards the landing site. Is that a building down there? What do you mean you can't identify it?
Oh no. I have a bad feeling about this.
Son, no turning back now. Positions, everyone. Touching down in 10, 9, 8. It's coming from the building? Change course. Set thrusters to full.
Oh yeah, they're dead. Yup. Well. I guess I'm stuck here. It did exactly what I thought it would do, and shot down the sunbeam as it came into land. I didn't even see any scraps fall from the sky. They were completely disintegrated. At this point, I was shocked, but my time on this world had taught me not to linger. I needed to act quickly and decisively if I wanted to survive. I dropped all the plant samples I brought with me. I know, crazy, right? I had more back at the base, and if I was stuck here, I didn't need to carry these around. I used the alien tablet to enter the tower cannon thing. The inside was beautiful. The architecture was a beauty to behold, and that's coming from a botanist. Inside, I found what I am calling an ion cube. It seems to be some kind of physical energy storage, at least according to my PDA. Without my plant samples taking up so much room, I had plenty of space to take the... it's roughly half a meter on each side, so I guess that would make its volume 1/8 of a cubic meter. 1/8 cubic meter cube of energy with me. After exploring the tower, I found a sort of elevator, I guess. It is functionally an elevator, but uses some kind of levitation or gravity manipulation to bring you between floors. I don't really care how it works, to be honest. I'm not a physicist, and frankly, I'm still mad this structure shot down my only way off this hellhole. Anyway, I took this alien elevator down to the lower floors. At this point, I am well below sea level. I kept exploring, and lo and behold, yet another arch. I'm just gonna spoil it. My initial hunch was right. These are basically stargates, but more local. I'll get back to my exploration later, but just thinking about these aliens is boiling my blood. Back to the orbital cannon. I eventually found my way to the control room and picked up a few more ion cubes and another tablet on the way. I entered a shielded room, and what I'm guessing is the command console stabbed my arm. Which, strangely enough, didn't hurt at all, and declared that I am infected and thus not allowed to leave the planetary quarantine. Looks like whatever got Medical Officer Danby is in my system too. I already suspected as much, but I guess that's 100% confirmed now. Luckily, the peeper enzymes are keeping the infection at bay. I gotta eat more peepers going forward. Maybe peeper sashimi would be better. I don't have any formal cooking training, but I was too poor to afford a fabricator in college, and I know my way around a knife. How bad could this be? I'll update you on how that goes tomorrow. After getting answers from the orbital cannon, I went back to the mountain gate to confirm my suspicions. I gladly took my ion cube and powered on. The archway was filled with a swirling green energy. This was it. I knew it was a gate. I only briefly hesitated before going through. After a few minutes of nauseating travel, I popped out in a familiar cave. After checking the surroundings, I confirmed this was indeed the gate on the floating island. I'm keeping this in my back pocket in case I need it. After going back through the portal, I took my Seamoth back to base, or I guess home now. I really am stuck here for the long haul. According to Second Officer Keen, Altera HQ sent a package to the Aurora. That might be the schematics for a rocket, but I'm just grasping at straws here. Well, I suppose I have nothing better to do. I guess I can try to fix the radiation problems on the Aurora while I'm there. Having that keep leaking will only kill me faster, even with this protective suit. I am hesitant to go over there, though. Both Second Officer Keen and the Life Pod 4 encounter dangerous Leviathan-class predators in the area. I need to be prepared. I'll need all my tools to deal with the onboard problems, but I think I'll need to fabricate a stasis rifle. I had found multiple broken ones at the Degassi base, and possibly a creature decoys as well. Actually, now that I think about it, the gas spot poison might be useful in conjunction with the stasis rifle. With my propulsion cannon, yeah, I found a bunch of those broken around the crash zone. I should be able to handle them safely before they pop. You know, I'm actually feeling good about this. With my PDA and the repair tool, I should be able to fix the shielding at least. Before I succumb to the bliss of slumber, I have to give one final screw you aliens. You're probably right about the disease, judging by Medical Officer Darby's rapid infection, but I still hate you because I'm stuck here and I want to go home. Dr. Skiz, signing off. Hey everyone, I want to thank you all for watching this video. In case you haven't figured it out yet, this was originally posted on April 1st. This is not the kind of video I usually make, but I will continue this periodically. This kind of video is a lot of work, and I have a full-time job, so I will post the sequel when I can. I honestly hope this does well, because it was a lot of fun creating this. I feel artistically fulfilled with this endeavor. To my regulars, don't worry. My normal content will resume tomorrow. Think of this as a fun intermission. If you liked this video, please tell me in the comments. Actually, if you didn't like it, tell me that too. I'm still a small channel, so I should be able to respond to everyone. Also, since you made it this far, you should click the like button. It really helps me out, and I like it when numbers go up. That's all I have to say. See you in the next one.